Hi guys, welcome to another episode of How to Tutorials by Levonotion Studios. This is Super Sam once again, and in this very episode I'm going to show you how you can weight paint your character in Blender. So let's get started. I have two characters in my viewport, and the first one is the floater here. I'm going to hide the armature for you to see what the character looks like. So you have this base, and then you have three poles attached to a ball. Okay, so now my intention is to rig this. So turn this on, and the first way of rigging is using the automatic weight. And to do so is as simple as selecting your object or character, and then hold down the Shift key on your keyboard and then select the armature as well. And once you've done this, use the command Ctrl P to bring up this set parent 2 options, and you want to go down to weight, automatic weights under armature deform. So weight, automatic weights. But before I do this, I want to bring a few things to your notice. Now you can see my objects are clean, no vertex groups, and I have no modifier here. All right, so hide, select all, unhide, hold down Shift, select the armature, and Ctrl P. Under armature deform, I'm going to click on weight, automatic weights. Now, as soon as I did this, it looks like nothing has happened, but three important things had happened. The first one is my mesh here now has a modifier called the armature modifier, as you can see here. The second thing that happened is when you go to the object data properties, you can see each of these bones here had been listed under the vertex groups. Now this is, I want to go to post mode so you can see. So this is bone, O1, bone O2, bone O3, right? So back to object mode. So now that's exactly what you can see here. Bone O1, O2, O3. That's the second thing that happened. Now the third thing that happened is each of these vertex group has a weight paint. And to show you this, I'm going to have to switch back to the weight paint mode. And now you can see. Okay, so as I select individual bones, you can see the influence on this mesh. Okay, so this is blue. Whenever you have blue color, when it comes to weight painting, it simply means vertices of that particular selected mesh has no weight on them. So it's 0 weight. Color blue is 0 weight, which means bone 3 has no effect on this mesh. Bone 2 has no influence on this selected mesh. Bone 1 has a certain degree of influence, and then bone has the most influence due to the color code. All right, so it's time to quickly move this around and show you guys what this means. You can see now my bone can control the object. And if you can't see the object well, you can easily change the display view from octahedral to stick. And this makes visibility easier. Okay, so you can decide to bend this that way, and everything works fine. All right, Alt-G, Alt-R to go back to the default position, and Alt-P to clear the parent, so clear parent. I want to take everything back to where we started from. We're back to where we started from. I also want to make sure everything is clean, so I'm going to take this out. So now we are back to what we started with. And then my armature isn't controlling the object. So I just showed you how to parent, I just showed you how to control your object using the armature. Okay, now the second way of doing this is using the empty deform, and I'm going to show you that right now. So select all the objects, bring up the armature, Shift select the armature, Ctrl P, And this time around, I'm going to click on with empty groups. Okay, so when you click on with empty groups, as usual, few things happens. Now, the first thing that happens here would be I have my vertex group listed based on the bones, that is the armature, right? And the second thing here is I have my armature modifier applied as well, automatically. Now, the third thing that should have happened would be for each of the bones here to have a weight, right? But in this case, there's no weight because we used the empty weight. And I'm going to prove that to you by switching to the weight paint. And you can see, like I said, blue color shows 0 weight. So if I select each of the bones, you can see they have no influence whatsoever on this. And the implication of this is that my armature wouldn't control my mesh because there is no weight to control the mesh with. Now, the question is, how do we make the armature control the mesh? So, I would like to do this using the edit mode first, so I can show you guys how you can go about that. Now, to do this using the edit mode, select your mesh, go to the edit mode, and then select all the vertices here. Now, I know this first bone is named bone, which is this first one here. So I want all these vertices here to be parented to this bone. So all I'm going to do is select the bone under the vertex group, and then go to weight. Make sure your weight is at 1. Remember, for weight paint, your weight goes from the value of 0 to 1. So when you have 0, it means your vertices, it means the armature has no influence on that particular vertex. But when the value is at 1, it means the armature has the maximum influence on the vertex. So I'm going to select the bone, make sure my weight is at 1, and I'm going to assign. Now, doing this, make sure that my armature can control this mesh 100%. That means when I go to the weight paint mode for this mesh, I should see a solid red color that tells me I have a maximum value for my weight paint. So let's go to weight paint here, and now we can see it's solid red. Okay, so this means I can control this mesh with the armature, as you can clearly see. Okay, so that's another way to do it. Now, a fourth way to make your armature control your character is by using let me go back to the object mode and then let's select this, for example. Okay, so I want to take out 2 bones here. So I want to take out bone 3 and 2. Okay, so my sphere mesh only has bone and bone 1. So I'm going to add bone 3 and 2 using the automatic, but this time around, a special kind of automatic weight paint. So select the mesh, hold down shift, select the bone, but because I'm interested in using specific bones, I have to go to my post mode, right? So in post mode here, I can select my object, then come to weight paint, then hold down shift and select bone 3 and bone 2, okay? Now this time around, I'm going to click on weight, and I'm going to click on assign automatic from bone. So when I click on assign automatic from bone, bone 2 and bone 3 would be automatically added with weight to my vertex group. So just click on that, and now you have bone 2 and bone 3. And you can see, because of this color, I know that the vertices here has influence that can be affected by the bones. So click on bone 2, you can see the influence. However, bone 1 and bone 1 has no influence on that because we use the empty weights for it. So that's just the basic principle of weight painting. So now, the last one I want to show you, which is the most used, is how to manually paint your weight yourself. Not through the edit mode, but through the weight paint mode itself. So I would like to go back to the default form when we started again, so I want to clean up this, and the video has to be fast forwarded. So now we're back to what we had before. You can see everything is clean, no vertex group, and then no amateur modifier. So now I want to show you how you can manually do this yourself. So the first thing you want to do is select the character as usual. Okay, I'm gonna hide the amateur for now. Select all the character, unhide the amateur, shift select the amateur, Control P, and I'm going to use with empty groups because I want to paint this manually myself. So with empty groups, now that I have it with empty groups, select the object itself, make sure we have the amateur modifier here, and under the vertex group you can see the 4 bones as usual. Okay, so this time around I'm going to go into make sure this is in post mode, and I'm going to go into my with paint mode. So now I have a solid blue color, which shows that I have no influence whatsoever to be controlled by my amateur here. So that is what I'm going to add. Make sure I'm going to make sure I select the bone I want to paint the influence on, and go to my settings here to choose the kind of brush that I want to use to paint the weight. Now there are different types of brush settings here. Under the blend, when you click on this drop down, you see a lot of them. Okay, but the most important ones are the add, the subtract. You can also use any other ones here, but what I use for my purpose is I use the mix. And the advantage of using the mix is with less stress, I can easily switch between the add blend and the subtract blend. So this is how you do that. Go to mix, and anytime your weight is at 0, it means your brush will be painting as a subtract blend. But when your weight is at 1, it simply means your brush will be painting as an add blend. It's as simple as that. And if you want to control the influence of your weight paint or the influence of your brush, you can do that by reducing the strength here. So if I want to paint faster, I can use the strength of 1, and if I want to paint more gently, I can use the influence of maybe 0.25 or 0.025, depending on what I need at that point in time. So enough talk, let us show it. So because I want to add this, I still need to touch 1 or 2 settings, like automatic auto normalize. Make sure that is checked on. If yours is turned off by default, make sure it is turned on. And then you want to turn on your mirror symmetry as well. Okay, this is optional. You can also do so if that works for your own case. So the advantage of having this mirror vertex is that when you paint on the right hand side, it's going to be mirrored on the left hand side, and the mirror is determined by your plane here, which is this X, Y, and Z. Mine is currently on X mirror. So when I paint on the right hand side, when I paint on the positive X, the equivalent negative X would also have the same weight paint on it, and that makes it work faster. Okay, the last thing I want to do here is make sure I have my wireframe checked on. Yours might be like this by default, but I like to have mine checked on. And so it's time to paint. I'm going to make sure my weight is on 1, and I'm going to paint that. So as soon as I painted, you'll notice this color grade, the color gradient here. You can see red. The part where you have red shows that the vertices there has a weight of 1, okay? And the part where you have green tending towards blue, the blue part shows 0 weight. So I want everything to be on red, so I'm going to manually paint this myself. Okay, until I see red everywhere. I'm painting the town red. Okay, so now we have that. Now to check out what we've done, object, post mode, and now when I move the object, when I move the armature, you can see my base is 100% controlled by this guy here. So that's how you do it. You're going to do the same thing for every other, let's go here, stick. So you're going to do the same thing for every other mesh here, and that's how you paint. Now we have this dude here. You can see the guy, and he's already rigged. However, we have one or two issues with the rig. The first one is when you zoom in and you move the eyebrow, this, you can see the influence is way too much. Okay, I'm going to hide the hair in order to make my point clearer. So I'm just going to hide the hair. Okay, so now when I move this up and down, you can see the influence. It is not supposed to affect the skull or the scalp of the character. And to fix this, you either add your weight to some part of the bones or you take out the weight. So in our case, we like to do both. And I want to review my deformed bones. You can see the deformed bones here. I want to review them. And also make sure I'm in my weight paint. Also make sure I'm in the weight paint for the character. So now I can use the command key, control, and click on this bone. As you can see here, the influence of this bone ends around this color around here, right? And that is why the bones that controls the eyelid has way more influence over here. So if I click on the bones that controls the eyelid, you can see the influence this is having. It's way too much, right? Okay, so I'm going to solve this by making sure my spine 6 has a lot of influence as well. So before I start painting, I want to check to be sure I want to check to be sure I have my auto normalize checked, and also my mirror vertex, and then of course my wireframe is visible. If it wasn't visible, you would have something like this. Okay, and I like it visible when I weight paint. So my brush is currently on the subtract mode, but I want to add to this bone. So I'm going to make my weight have a value of 1, and I'm going to start painting. Okay, I'm going to start with this edge first. Let's paint the town red. Okay, so as I paint here, I want to show you what influence that is having on the bone. You can see the influence is getting reduced, right? Okay, and that's why you should always make sure you have your auto normalized on, because what auto normalized does is, as soon as I keep adding values for vertices, it takes out the influence of those vertices from every other bone that previously had an influence on the vertices. So you have a scale of 0 to 1, okay? So if bone A controls a particular vertex for 0.5, for example, 0.5 influence, bone B will definitely control that same vertex for another 0.5 influence. But if I want bone A to have 100% influence, all I need to do is just keep adding the weight on bone A. And that would mean subtracting the 0.5 that bone B has until I fully take out everything. Okay, so that's how it works. So back to spine 06. I'll keep painting. I want it further down. Okay, yeah, somewhere there. So what I do most times is, after painting this way, I like to smoothen the edges, and to do so, I use the blur tool. So just feather things around to have a smooth edge. Okay. Then at any point in time, you can reduce the strength as well, like I said. Okay. Just smoothing things out a bit. All right, now let's see our eyebrow and see what we have. You can see the influence has been reduced. Before we started painting, we had the influence up to somewhere here. Okay, it has really been reduced. And now, when you go back to your object mode, post mode for the rig, and you move this, you can see you end controlling this core again. So everything looks tight and nice. So this is how you want to go about it. Okay, so there's another little problem here on the left hand. Okay, this index finger, when you rotate this, you can see there's a part of the finger sticking into space this way. That can also be an issue of weight paint. So this is how you fix such when you have this problem. So Alt R to go back to the defaults. What you want to do is go to the weight paint mode, and then hold down the control key on your keyboard and click on the bone that is meant to affect that particular mesh. And right away you can see the blue color here. Remember I said blue means 0 weight. It means that this bone here has 0 influence on these 2 vertex points. That's why it's not controlling it. So when I use control, click on this and rotate R, you can see some part of the mesh is hanging in space, just like this. And this is because this bone here has no influence on both vertices, and that's why it's not controlling it. So we have to fix this using one of the methods we had already talked about earlier on, which is edit mode. So I'm just going to go to the edit mode and fix it there. So from the edit mode, I need to know the name of the bones I'm interested in. So back to the weight paint mode. Select this. You can see this has 100% influence on the vertices, and the name of this bone is index 02, while the second one here is index 03. So my intention here is to take out these vertices from the influence of index 02 and then add the vertices to the influence of index 03, right? So I'm going to the edit mode and I'm going to select both vertices in question. And index 02 here, I'm going to remove the vertices. So click on remove. And the vertices snaps away from that current position. Now, they ain't in the right position yet, and that's because I need to add the vertices to the influence of index 03. So I'm going to click on index 03 and then assign. Boom. And we have the vertices in the right position. To be sure this has worked fine, I'm going back to the weight paint, and now I can see that everything is looking the way it should look. So click on this control and R to move it, and then you can see the fingers moves correctly. So Alt R to the default. You can go back to object mode here. I need to hide this back to post mode, and now move the finger and everything moves fine. No vertices is hanging in space. So this is where I'm going to call it a wrap. I hope you've learned 1 or 2 things. Don't forget to like the video, subscribe to our channel if you've not done so, and until next time, keep your creativity blending.